I think when I think of it for National Athletic Training Month, it's a somewhat of a unique or a younger profession. It's only been around since 1950 as a dedicated profession. So we're still trying to get recognition of what we are, because a lot of people don't know what we are. And for the safety of student athletes, patients, or just in general our patient population, we want to make sure that people know what a qualified athletic trainer is. So when they have someone that's helping them on the sideline of a high school football game, or at a workplace or performing arts, wherever they may be, that they know that they're in good hands of a qualified healthcare professional.
What was it that got you interested in the field to begin with? I mean, looking at your background, of course, you've been at the Power 5 level, you're now back to the Group 5 level. What got you going to begin with?
So it was actually a very unique story of, I didn't really know what an athletic trainer was in high school, and we had this class in 11th grade where it was called Decisions, and it's where they talked about, don't doing drugs and making sure that like sexual education and all that stuff. But the next decision that we had in our lives was where do we want to go, either to college or to the trade school, or what's next. And so they had us take this computerized program where we answered like 150 questions on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And when the results came out, the top 3 were physical therapist, athletic training, and education, so like teaching. And so I knew teaching, I knew physical therapy, but I really didn't know athletic training. So initially I went through the physical therapy route, but then with some of the physical therapy and pre-athletic training classes that I was also taking, I realized that athletic training and athletics was more up my alley rather than the physical therapy route. So I would say it's a very non-traditional way. I wasn't a person that like got injured, had a relationship with my high school athletic trainer or anything like that. It was really just a computer program that said, hey, you should think about this. And so I'm really thankful that it did.
It worked out well.
It did.
Look at your day-to-day job now. Not only do you get the benefit of interacting with students, but you also then in turn kind of have to mentor them, because they don't fully know what they want to do. A lot of them say, I'm going to play pro. Well, we all know that's a very small percent, but how do you go about, some of the coaches help mentor them as well? Definitely.
So I always tell the student athletes and anyone that I come into contact with that the goal of myself is to be an advocate for the student athlete or the patient. So a lot of times that can be telling the student athlete that we need to pull the reins back, that you're going too fast, or maybe our goals are a little too far-fetched, and so we need to draw ourselves back. But then there's also the other end too, where a student athlete may need a little bit more motivation and more, whether that's incentive in a rehab program. So I like to think I'm an advocate for them. So I try to be a sounding board when they need it, but then also guiding them along the way of getting to their full potential.
You're working with a sport like baseball. It's a sport that stretches for a long period of time. It's also a sport that has the potential for some very serious injuries. How do you go about working with guys and becoming really ingrained with them?
So I think that you hit it right on the head when you said it's a long season. So a lot of these road trips we have 10 to 12 hour bus rides, and then a lot of downtime spent in the hotel or at warm-ups for the game. So you really get to know the guys and they get to know me. So we get a rapport and a trust. So that way, if something does happen, they can truly lean towards me and look towards me for advice. And then the reverse also too is that I get to know them, so I know if something's just an ache or a pain, or if something's more of a serious injury. And so with a long season, no doubt you're going to be sore by the end of it. Like I think the last day you feel 100% in the baseball season is the day before you start practices for the season. So it's definitely a grind, but with that grind, you develop really good relationships. And so a lot of it's treating stuff on the fly to make sure that guys are as healthy as they can be without risking their long-term health, and then figuring out the nuances in between there.
Talking with Julia with track, or Jake with gymnastics, those are sports that they're the most not familiar with, so they really had to learn the game. Of course, baseball is more familiar to everybody, but how do you go about making sure you're most prepared for your job too, working different sports?
A lot of it, I rely on a lot of my teaching from the biomechanics standpoint, but then also the experts in our sport are the ones that are playing it. So that could be the student athletes or then also the coaches. So a lot of times I rely on the coaches of saying, this is what I'm seeing from my end, what are you seeing from your end, and how can we help the student athlete the best? And a lot of times also too, I'll bounce ideas off the student athlete saying, hey, I played baseball up until high school, so I wouldn't say I know the sport. I wouldn't say I'm a pro by any means, but I was a catcher, so I never did any type of pitching. So if I'm working with the pitchers, like, hey, if we're trying to work on this, what's the best way to do that? If we're trying to get you to release over the top more, so relying on your resources. And thankfully with Eastern Michigan, we have a really good coaching staff, and the student athletes are very receptive to when I give them that responsibility of like, hey, this is gonna be a give and take. I'll show you from my end what I'm seeing, but I want to see how it's actually, how you feel with it. So
speaking of resources, Eastern has done a good job reinvesting in the resources that you have as a department. But one of the things from talking to everybody is, and similar to our profession, it's the family atmosphere and peers that you are meeting with every day. Speak to the kind of camaraderie you have from top down. Gretchen, Steven, everybody that you get to work with, and how lucky you guys are each day to be together as a group.
Yeah, I think it's a really unique opportunity that we have 3 satellite facilities between all of the different sports. So we don't get to see everyone all the time, but starting at the top, Gretchen is really good at making sure that we have staff events where we can get to know each other. And then with some of my specifically administrative responsibilities, I get to interact with everyone almost on a daily basis, if not a weekly basis, or weekly if not daily. And so it's really cool of the way we interact. And you can tell that each facility, I think, is closer. So the baseball, soccer, footballs, we tend to be a little bit closer than the gymnastics tracks and everything like that. But I think then that helps we can rely on people more frequently in those different facilities, while also whenever we get the opportunity to get to know other people.
You said the script over, and from a kind of PR perspective, making sure people are aware, but how else do you want people to notice and recognize not only your staff, but everybody who's in the profession around the country as well?
Yeah, I think I would say just knowing our worth. So if you're an athletic trainer, I want to make sure that you know what your worth is. And if you are a parent, administrator, a student athlete, that you know what an athletic trainer is and what they can provide for you. A lot of the fights that we have within the athletic training community, I should say, are advocacies, not fights, but what we want to try to advocate for is making sure that every sporting event has some type of medical coverage from an athletic training standpoint. And how that can help is just making sure that everyone's participating in sports safely. And you'll see also too that we're not only in sports, so people think of like athletic training and then you hear like, oh, trainer, and that's like it's bad for our ears to hear that, because we don't want to get mixed up with like personal trainers or strength conditioning coaches, because each of them are very highly skilled in their area and there is a lot of overlap. But we want to make sure that if you're looking for someone that can diagnose injuries, illnesses, help with rehabs, emergency cardiac care, anything in between, that you should be looking for an athletic trainer. And so that's with our shift from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree. That's a lot of what we're trying to do, is invest in the education of each athletic trainer. So when you are hiring one, either as full-time, as on the side job, hourly, whatever it is, that you know what you're getting into.
Awesome. Anything else you think I should know or would be important for these pieces?
No, I think it's a great opportunity this month, as is every month. You have like a celebratory month. Like this is the month we really want to push the focus on it. But just hopefully overall that I hear it all the time. Probably like 10 years ago in the media, you'd hear like, oh, the trainers or the doctors, but now you're seeing more and more of them being very specific of like, it's the athletic trainers that are on the sideline helping this out. And so I think that's, you already see the fruits of our labors starting to make progress. And it's a really good feeling, especially I'm on the younger end of my career. So just to see that there's already been progress made in the past couple of years, that I'm excited to see what's on the horizon.